All right, guys, what do you got?
Yeah, let's fire away here, guys.
Yeah, you got a first timer here, so
Have you had a welcome to the SEC moment yet? I know it's spring, but
welcome to the SEC moment. Probably the very first recruit I talked to when I got to Auburn, and it was a quick reminder that welcome back to the SEC. That each one of these is going to be gloves off and a million miles an hour, and you better be detailed and you better be on your P's and Q's. So I would say whatever day I took the job, November 30th, that was my welcome back to the SEC moment.
You quoted the other day talking about how different Tennessee's offense is than when you were there. I'm curious about that, the beer and shoot, the old Baylor offense that a lot of you guys run. How much has it changed and evolved over the years? Because it was kind of a closed system, and now lots of different teams running it, and it seems like there's different flavors of it now.
Yeah, I think that maybe got blown up a little bit more. I just made the comment that this was the first time I got a chance to sit down and study it, and it looks different. Clearly, it looks different. It's been 3 years, and there's somebody else running it. I think we all have made it our own. I think obviously everybody has evolved, and especially if you're in this league now, you better have evolved. You didn't get here by not being able to evolve. So I think just as any offense, I think people, specifically media, want to put it in want to compartmentalize what you do offensively, defensively. They want to kind of put you in a box, like you veer and shoot. Like I've never once thought of it as veer and shoot. Maybe it is. Be honest with you, like I've never like people say, "What do you do?" Well, we run our offense, and it's schematically evolved so many different ways. The core of it, and I guess you trace it back to that, but guys have their own thoughts on what offensive football should be. Guys have their own thoughts on what pass game looks like. Guys have their own thoughts on what the run game looks like. So I think just naturally, they're different people running it, different backgrounds, different philosophies. I think the core DNA of it was just simply that tempo is a huge part of it, and then certainly using the entire width of the field. But people again compartmentalize it as, man, these wide splits. Well, nobody ever said you had to play in wide splits. Just the thought of making people defend the entire width of the field. I think systematically, where I think it hasn't changed is the core foundation of it is you make the defense adjust to what you do rather than adjusting to the defense and forcing the defense's hand, which you can run triple option and say, man, that's what you do. You can run the stack I and say that that's what you do. I think it's evolved because different people are doing it. And different people got different backgrounds, and high-end offensive play callers adjust their scheme to their players. And I think if you're in this league, you probably have figured that out at some point along the way.
Coach, when you had spring exit meeting with players, what was kind of like the overall theme of what to expect from them in fall camp?
Man, we had exit meetings with the guys. We created individualized plans for each of them, from a strength side, from a speed side, from a nutrition side, from a sports medicine side, and the overall theme. I don't know if there was an overall theme other than these are the things you've got 12 weeks to perfect. This is who's responsible for perfecting them, and when we get to August 4th, you've got to be elite at perfecting those things. And I think that was just the only message was this is, as a team, this is the biggest summer in Auburn football history simply because it's the next summer, and it's the only one we got.
Alex, there seems to be a pretty wide variance amongst coaches about how big a college football playoff should be. Where do you land, and is there a chance, do you think, really to get a consensus amongst your peers here?
Yeah, I've kind of finalized my thought process on. I haven't been in this league long enough to have an opinion on anything grander than Auburn football, and I say that like humbly in every way. Nobody in that room cares what I think about the college football playoff, and I hope at some point maybe people will. But when I tell you the college football playoff is literally the last thing that I've thought about since I took the job at Auburn, I've thought about the things we got to get done for us to be highly successful so that we're in that conversation. But man, nobody cares if I think it's 12 or 16 or 24. Like, and every time I see something on it or read it, I'm like, man, like, whoever's figuring this out, God bless them. Because if it comes down to me figuring it out, man, I'm in the wrong career.
Should a coach's opinion matter on the size and shape of a playoff, whether it be you or any coach?
Yeah, I think coaches' opinions should matter in a lot of things that nobody asks any of us. And Craig Bohl's done as good of a job as anybody in recent history of being a voice for the coaches and making impactful change. The calendar being changed was huge, and that was Craig Bohl all the way. The portal windows going from 2 to 1 and when they fit was Craig Bohl and his staff in every imaginable way. I sat in those meetings for a couple of years now where we made impactful change, and the NCAA sat in there with us, and general counsel sat in there with us. Like, that's as much meaningful change, and his passion and his true drive to impact college football at the tail end of his career has been incredible. But outside of that, like, the practitioners of what's going on have the last say in any of it. And that's the part that's really jacked up in general. And again, I'm not standing here telling you anything you don't know, but the actual practitioners of the day-to-day have the least say right now. And in any of it, in calendar and recruiting and in the financial side of it all. And so if anybody can get it done, it's Greg Sankey and this group of guys in terms of creating meaningful change outside of the AFCA and Craig Bohl and his staff. But man, there's a lot that the actual day-to-day practitioners, which is the coaches and the players, that never decide anything. Talk about college football playoff, to the rules, to the governing body that actually enforces rules, whatever rules still exist, which are very few and far between. But like the actual practitioners have almost no say.
How would you define Alex success in year one for you? Like, what would, I'm not going to like win total, right? Like, what would a successful season look like?
Yeah, I think to go back, we're still evaluated on wins and losses. So like, I'm fully aware of that. I've done this long enough to know that. So how it's defined externally is probably a little bit different than how it would be defined internally. I mean, internally for us, the biggest thing that's got to happen is, I would say, if we go back and say, man, we were successful in year one, if we laid an actual foundation for our program. And I think the way you lay a foundation is that you have an identity. If we can leave year one with an established identity of who we are, and that could be looked at a bunch of different ways, but truly when whether it's the media, the casual fan is watching us play, they can say, man, this is what we are. This is what this team is. And a college football team takes the personality, takes the identity on of the head football coach. I think when you watch a team play, it's a direct reflection of the culture and the true grit of what the head football coach holds a standard to every single day inside the walls of that program. And if we can leave year one and have an identity, and I mean identity in terms of how we play, but identity in terms of how we recruit, identity in terms of who we are as a program, the ability to be physically and mentally tough, and being visibly physically tough. Like, actually, you watch us play and you say, man, these dudes are physically and mentally tough, well coached, don't make dumb mistakes. I would tell you that if we leave year one and we have an identity, we understand what we're recruiting to, have an identity offensively, defensively, and special teams, meaning schematic identity, the actual character which we play with. If we leave year one and we have a great foundation from an identity standpoint, we'll have a chance to be really successful moving forward. I think the worst thing that can happen leaving year one is you get done with it and you're like, man, we jacked up a lot from an identity standpoint, from a staffing standpoint, to where the internal culture now can't just be built on going into year 2, but actually you have to reshuffle and reshift. And then as you're recruiting, you're now recruiting to a different scheme, a different culture. I think we leave year 1 and we have an identity set, and the players are the ones that are actually upholding it rather than the coaches. I think we'll have a chance to have success moving forward.
What's different? I was just gonna say, like we've seen in this era, coaches bring players with them to help and kind of help set that foundation and create that identity. How specifically do those USF guys do that? Like, how do they help do what you want in year 1 and speed it up?
Yeah, I think 2 ways. One, the obvious would be their familiarity with who we are, what we are. Out of the 13 that got in the portal and then chose to come to Auburn, 11 of them are on offense, 2 are on defense. But the 11 on offense schematically have a core foundation of who we are from a terminology standpoint, from an expectation standpoint. They know what we are. The 2 on defense can kind of carry the torch from a top-down voice in that room. I think holistically, and maybe even more importantly than the schematic part, the ability to be in that locker room. And we just went through a winter program and a spring that's been physically and mentally as tough on our players as anything I've ever been a part of. Intentionally, it's been a taxing grind of a winter and spring for our players, and not necessarily a weed them out process, more so a build a level of confidence where we can go into the season and say, man, like we've truly put the work in. And they're going into the summer in the same breath. Like, this is going to be as tough and grueling of a summer as these guys, at least in my recent time that I can remember, that we're putting them through. Naturally, they're going to go in that locker room and be like, man, this AG guy is wild, or he's crazy, or, man, like, what the hell are they doing to us? And just the messaging, and totally, like, unprovoked, but guys that obviously came because there's a level of trust, a level of continuity that they can say, man, like there's intent to why it's like this. Or even easier said, man, like, just trust this dude. Like, there's a plan behind it, just trust it. And I think the way that you can have success on the field the quickest is there's legitimate trust in the locker room. There's legitimate belief that everybody's moving in the same direction. And when it's your peers saying, like, hey, just trust them, I think it's so different than when it's a coach, like, or support staff member. When it truly can be your peers in that locker room saying, like, man, there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing, I think you can take a giant step quicker. So both schematically and culturally, those guys help drive that message. I guess we'll find out in the fall if that was right or wrong, but the hope is to speed the process up.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. War Eagle.